When Daniel Anderson saw flames dancing in his rearview mirror on that dark mountain highway, he never imagined the young woman trapped inside that burning Porsche was Isabella Jones, daughter of billionaire tech mogul Richard Jones. Running from an arranged marriage and her father's controlling empire, Isabella had crashed while fleeing into the night with nowhere to turn. Daniel risked everything to pull her from the wreckage just seconds before the car exploded. But when Isabella woke up in the hospital, she made a choice that would change both their lives forever. She lied about her identity, desperate to escape the golden cage of her inheritance. What started as a simple act of heroism became a journey of love, deception, and discovery that neither of them saw coming. This is their incredible story. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The Crystal Chandelier Cast, dancing shadows across the marble floor of the Jones mansion as Isabella stood frozen in the doorway of her father's study. The words he had just spoken hung in the air like poison, each syllable cutting deeper than the last. The wedding is set for December 15th, Richard Jones announced without looking up from his mahogany desk, his fingers dancing across his laptop keyboard as if he were discussing a business merger rather than his daughter's future. Harrison Clark is a suitable match. His family's pharmaceutical empire complements our tech holdings perfectly. Isabella's hands trembled as she gripped the doorframe. At 18, she had always known this day would come, but she had hoped her father would at least pretend to care about her feelings. "Dad, I don't love him. I barely know him." Richard finally looked up, his steel-gray eyes cold and calculating. Behind him, floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the sprawling Denver skyline, a kingdom he had built through ruthless ambition and strategic marriages. "Love is a luxury we cannot afford, Isabella. You are a Jones. Your personal desires are secondary to the family legacy. But I want to go to college, study literature, maybe write—" "Nonsense," he interrupted, returning to his screen. "Harrison will provide stability and status. The contracts are already drawn up. Your trust fund will be fully accessible after the marriage, provided you fulfill your obligations as his wife." Isabella felt the walls of the opulent study closing in around her. The Persian rugs, the first edition books, the priceless artwork. All of it suddenly felt like prison bars. "And if I refuse?" For the first time, Richard smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Then you'll discover how quickly privilege can disappear. No trust fund, no inheritance, no family support. You'll learn what the real world is like for people without connections or resources." The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken threats and years of disappointment. Isabella had spent her entire life trying to earn her father's approval, excelling in school, attending charity galas, playing the perfect daughter role. But she had never been enough. Never been. The son he wanted to inherit his empire, never been compliant enough to simply accept his decisions without question. "The engagement party is next weekend," Richard continued, as if her silence meant agreement. "Victoria has already ordered your dress, something appropriate for a future Mrs. Clark." Isabella's stepmother, Victoria, a former model who had married Richard when Isabella was 12, had never hidden her disdain for her stepdaughter. The idea of Victoria choosing her engagement dress felt like the final insult. "I need time to think," Isabella whispered. "There's nothing to think about. The decision is made." Richard closed his laptop with a sharp snap. "I expect you to conduct yourself appropriately at the announcement. The reputation of this family depends on it." Isabella turned and walked slowly toward the door, her designer heels clicking against the marble like a countdown timer. At the threshold, she paused. "What if I run away?" Richard's laugh was devoid of humor. "With what money? Your cards are—" Monitored, your accounts are controlled, and my security team knows your every move. You're not a prisoner, Isabella, but you are a Jones. Learn the difference. As the study door closed behind her with a soft click, Isabella felt something inside her chest crack open. She walked through the mansion's hallways like a ghost, past family portraits that felt like accusations and luxury that now seemed like mockery. In her bedroom, a suite larger than most apartments, decorated in soft pastels that Victoria had chosen to reflect innocence and femininity, Isabella stared at her reflection in the antique mirror. The young woman looking back at her had everything: perfectly styled dark hair, a wardrobe worth more than most people's salaries, jewels that had been in the family for generations. But her brown eyes held a desperation that no amount of money could mask. Isabella opened her jewelry box and pulled out the one thing that was truly hers. A simple gold necklace her mother had given her before the cancer took her when Isabella was 10. Her real mother, not Victoria, had believed in dreams and possibilities. She had read Isabella bedtime stories about brave princesses who saved themselves. "I'm sorry, Mom," Isabella whispered to the necklace, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I can't be what he wants me to be." The decision crystallized in that moment. Isabella moved with sudden purpose, grabbing a small backpack and stuffing it with essentials. Cash she had secretly saved from birthday gifts, a few changes of clothes, and her mother's necklace. She left behind her phone, knowing it could be tracked, and her credit cards, knowing they would be cancelled the moment she used them. The garage held her father's collection of luxury vehicles, each one worth more than most people would see in a lifetime. Isabella chose the silver Porsche, fast, reliable, and ironically a gift from her father on her 18th birthday. The keys were hanging on their designated hook, right where they always were, because who would expect the perfect daughter to rebel? As she backed out of the circular driveway, Isabella caught sight of the mansion in her rear-view mirror. Its windows glowed like golden eyes in the darkness, beautiful and cold. She had grown up in paradise, but it had always been someone else's vision of heaven. The mountain highway stretched ahead, dark and uncertain. Isabella pressed harder on the accelerator, each mile putting distance between her and the life that had been chosen for her. She didn't have a plan, didn't know where she was going, but for the first time in her life, she was choosing her own direction. The radio played softly as she drove through the Colorado night, past sleeping towns and endless pine forests. Isabella rolled down the windows, letting the mountain air fill her lungs. It tasted like freedom, wild and intoxicating. Hours passed as she drove deeper into the mountains, following winding roads that seemed to lead nowhere and everywhere at once. The fuel gauge was getting low, but Isabella couldn't bring herself to stop. Every gas station, every small town felt like a place where her father's reach might find her. Her phone, the one she'd deliberately left behind, would have started buzzing by now. Victoria would have discovered her missing when she came to discuss wedding preparations. Her father's security team would already be mobilizing, calling in favors with local police, checking traffic cameras, following digital footprints. But out here, on this dark mountain highway, Isabella felt invisible for the first time in her life. No cameras, no security detail, no expectations. Just her, the road, and the endless possibilities that lay ahead. She thought about Harrison Clark, probably at home in his family's estate, completely unaware that his arranged fiancée was racing through the night to escape their predetermined future. He seemed nice enough during the few awkward dinners their families had shared, but there had been no spark, no connection. He looked at her the way her father looked at his business acquisitions, as something valuable to be obtained, and managed. The tears came suddenly, blurring her vision as exhaustion and emotion finally caught up with her. Isabella had been driving for hours, running on adrenaline and desperation. The mountain curves seemed sharper now, the darkness more complete. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, trying to focus on the road ahead. Freedom was supposed to feel triumphant, but all she felt was scared and alone. For 18 years, every decision had been made for her. Now faced with infinite choices, she felt paralyzed by the possibilities. That's when she saw the deer. It appeared in her headlights like a ghost, frozen in the middle of the narrow mountain road. Isabella yanked the steering wheel hard to the right, her heart stopping as the Porsche skidded toward the guardrail. Time slowed as she felt the car leave the pavement, tumbling down the steep embankment in a chaos of metal and glass. The last thing Isabella remembered before darkness claimed her was the irony of it all. She had finally taken control of her life, only to lose control completely. Above her, on the dark mountain highway, a delivery truck's headlights cut through the night, and Daniel Anderson was about to make a choice that would change everything. Daniel Anderson had been driving the same mountain route for 3 years, but tonight felt different. The October air was crisp and thin at this altitude, and his breath formed small clouds in the cab of his delivery truck as he navigated the winding Colorado highway. At 35, Daniel had found peace in these mountains after the chaos that had torn his life apart 5 years earlier. His wife Sarah's death from leukemia had shattered everything he thought he knew about fairness and hope. Left alone with their teenage daughter Riley, Daniel had made the difficult decision to leave his corporate job in Denver and start over. The mountain delivery route wasn't glamorous, supplying fresh bread and pastries to small towns scattered throughout the Rockies. But it was honest work that let him be home for Riley every evening. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Tonight's run had taken longer than usual. A late delivery to Silverton had put him behind schedule, and now he was racing against time to get home before Riley's curfew. At 16, she was responsible and mature beyond her years. But Daniel still worried. Losing Sarah had taught him how quickly everything could change. The radio crackled with classic rock as Daniel rounded another curve, his headlights cutting through the darkness. He knew this stretch of highway intimately, the sharp turns, the steep drop-offs, the places where deer like to cross. It was dangerous even in daylight, treacherous at night. That's when he saw the explosion of light in his rearview mirror. Daniel's foot hit the brake instinctively as a massive fireball erupted somewhere behind him, turning the night sky orange. Through his side mirror, he could see flames dancing among the pine trees below the road, casting eerie shadows that writhed and twisted like living things. "Jesus," he whispered, pulling over immediately and grabbing his emergency kit from behind the seat. Sarah had always teased him about being over-prepared, but his paranoia about safety had only increased after losing her. The kit contained flares, a first aid supplies, emergency blankets, and a heavy-duty flashlight that could cut through smoke. Daniel scrambled down the steep embankment, his work boots sliding on loose gravel and pine needles. The heat hit him like a physical wall as he got closer to the wreckage. What he found made his blood freeze. A silver Porsche was wrapped around a massive pine tree, its front end completely destroyed, the engine compartment already engulfed in flames. But it was what he saw through the spider-webbed windshield that made his heart stop. A young woman unconscious and trapped inside as fire began to spread from the engine toward the passenger compartment. "Hey, can you hear me?" Daniel shouted, running to the driver's side door. It was completely crushed from the impact, metal twisted and bent beyond opening. He could see the girl clearly now. She looked barely 18, with long dark hair, matted with blood and designer clothes that marked her as someone with money. But money couldn't save her from burning alive. Daniel tried the passenger door, but it was jammed tight. The heat was becoming unbearable, and he could hear the ominous sound of fire spreading, metal groaning under extreme temperature. The smell of gasoline was getting stronger, which meant the fuel tank could go at any moment. The girl's eyes fluttered open, unfocused, and filled with terror as she became aware of her situation. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible, over the roar of flames. I can't move." Her seatbelt was twisted around her body, and Daniel could see that her left leg was trapped under the crumpled dashboard. She was conscious, but clearly in shock, her face pale and streaked with blood from what looked like a head wound. "I'm going to get you out," Daniel promised, his voice calm despite the panic coursing through him. "What's your name?" I don't," she stammered, confusion clouding her features. Whether from the head injury or shock, she seemed unable to form coherent thoughts. Daniel didn't have time to wait for answers. He grabbed a heavy rock and smashed the passenger window, clearing away the glass as quickly as possible. The flames were spreading faster now, licking at the interior of the car. He could feel the heat singeing his hair and clothes as he crawled halfway through the window opening. "This is going to hurt," he warned her, pulling out his pocket knife to cut through the seatbelt. The girl whimpered as he worked, her breathing shallow and rapid. "Stay with me. What's your name? Can you tell me your name?" "Isabella," she whispered, then immediately looked confused, as if surprised by her own answer. "No, I don't know. Everything's fuzzy." "Okay, Isabella, I'm Daniel. I'm going to pull you out now, but I need you to help me. Can you push with your right leg?" The flames had reached the dashboard now, and Daniel could feel the heat blistering his exposed skin. Isabella's leg was pinned, but not completely crushed. With adrenaline-fueled strength, he managed to shift the twisted metal just enough to free her. "Now!" he shouted, grabbing her under the arms and pulling with everything he had. Isabella cried out in pain but pushed with her good leg, and suddenly she was free, both of them tumbling backward through the passenger window as the interior of the car erupted in flames. They rolled down the hillside together, Daniel shielding her body with his own, as burning debris rained down around them. When they finally came to rest against a fallen log about 30 feet from the wreckage, both were covered in soot and cuts, but alive. Isabella was semi-conscious, her head lolling against Daniel's shoulder as he held her. She was wearing what looked like expensive clothes, a cashmere sweater and designer jeans, but they were torn and bloodied from the crash. Around her neck was a simple gold necklace that somehow seemed out of place with the rest of her wealthy appearance. "You're safe now," Daniel whispered, pulling out his cell phone to call for help. "I've got you." As he waited for the emergency dispatcher to answer, Daniel studied the girl in his arms. She looked so young, so vulnerable. What was someone like her doing alone on this remote mountain highway in the middle of the night? The car had been going fast, too fast for these curves. Had she been running from something or to something? 911, what's your emergency? This is Daniel Anderson. I'm on Highway 285, about 15 miles south of Fairplay. There's been a serious car accident with injuries. I need an ambulance and fire department immediately. Isabella stirred in his arms, her eyes opening briefly. "Don't let them find me," she whispered urgently, her fingers clutching at his jacket. "Please, they can't know where I am." Before Daniel could ask what she meant, her eyes rolled back and she lost consciousness again. Her pulse was weak but steady, her breathing shallow but regular. She had a significant head injury and probably internal injuries from the crash, but she was alive. Behind them, the Porsche continued to burn, flames reaching high into the night sky. In the distance, Daniel could hear sirens approaching, first responders racing through the mountains to reach them. As he held this mysterious young woman who had literally crashed into his life, Daniel felt something he hadn't experienced since Sarah's death, a sense of purpose beyond just survival. This girl, whoever she was, needed help, And despite all the red flags about her expensive car, her designer clothes, and her cryptic warning about not being found, Daniel knew he was going to help her. He had no idea that his decision to save Isabella's life was about to change everything, not just for her, but for him and Riley too. Sometimes, the most important moments in life come disguised as random accidents on dark mountain roads. And Daniel Anderson was about to discover that heroes aren't born from grand gestures, but from simple choices to help another human being. When they need it most, the sirens grew louder as emergency vehicles wound their way up the mountain highway, their lights cutting through the darkness like beacons of hope. Daniel held Isabella close, protecting her from the cold mountain air, and waited for help to arrive. Isabella's first conscious thought was that she was drowning in a sea of white. White walls, white sheets, white ceiling tiles that seemed to swim above her like clouds. The second thought was pain, a throbbing in her head that made the fluorescent lights feel like daggers, and a sharp ache in her ribs that made every breath a conscious effort. But it was the third thought that made her panic. Where was she, and why couldn't she remember how she got here? "Easy there," a gentle voice said from beside her bed. Isabella turned her head slowly, wincing at the movement, to see a man in his 30s with kind eyes and calloused hands. He looked tired, like he'd been sitting there for hours, and his clothes smelled faintly of smoke. "You're in Denver General Hospital. You were in a car accident. I'm Daniel. I pulled you out of the wreck." The memories came back in fragments, like pieces of a shattered mirror reflecting different moments. The argument with her father, the desperate drive through mountain darkness, the deer in her headlights, the terrible moment when she realized the car was going over the edge. But as the details crystallized in her mind, Isabella felt a cold wave of realization wash over her. If she was in Denver General, if they had her information, then her father would already know where she was. Richard Jones had connections everywhere. Hospital administrators, police chiefs, city officials who owed him favors. She would be back in that mansion within hours. The wedding plans would continue, and her brief taste of freedom would be nothing but a memory. "What's your name?" Daniel asked gently, noticing she was fully awake now. "The doctors need some information for your chart." Isabella stared at him, this stranger who had risked his life to save hers. His face was honest and open, marked by laugh lines and the kind of weathering that came from outdoor work. There was no calculation in his expression, no agenda behind his concern. He was nothing like the men in her father's world, who always wanted something in return for their kindness. Isabella began, then stopped. This was it, the moment that would determine everything. If she told him who she was, he would feel obligated to contact her family. The police would get involved, the media would catch wind of the story, and she would become the billionaire's daughter's dramatic rescue instead of just a person who needed help. "I don't remember," she lied, the words feeling strange on her tongue. "Everything after the crash is just blank." Daniel's expression shifted to one of concern. "That's not uncommon with head injuries. The doctors said you have a concussion. Sometimes memories come back gradually." A young doctor in scrubs appeared at the foot of her bed, clipboard in hand. "Good to see you awake," she said with professional cheerfulness. "I'm Dr. Martinez. How are you feeling?" "Like I was hit by a truck," Isabella managed, which earned her a small smile from both Daniel and the doctor. "Actually, you hit a tree. But I understand the sentiment," Dr. Martinez said, checking the monitors around Isabella's bed. "You have a mild concussion, 3 bruised ribs, and various cuts and scrapes, but nothing life-threatening. You're very lucky this gentleman found you when he did." Isabella looked at Daniel with genuine gratitude. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I owe you my life." Daniel shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. Anyone would have done the same." But Isabella knew that wasn't true. In her world, people calculated the cost of every action, weighed every favor against potential benefit. The fact that this man had risked his own life for a complete stranger without expecting anything in return was alien to her experience. Dr. Martinez continued her examination, asking Isabella to follow her finger with her eyes, testing her reflexes, checking for signs of internal bleeding. The good news is that your injuries are healing well. The concerning part is the memory loss. Can you tell me your name? Isabella hesitated again. She could feel Daniel watching her, genuinely worried about her well-being. I'm not sure. Sometimes I think it might be Isabella, but I can't be certain. And no one has reported a missing person matching your description, Dr. Martinez said, consulting her clipboard. No identification was found at the accident scene. Your car was completely destroyed in the fire. Isabella felt a mixture of relief and fear. Relief that her father hadn't tracked her down yet. Fear about what would happen when he inevitably did. Richard Jones didn't let his possessions disappear without a fight, and that's exactly what she was to him, a valuable asset that had temporarily gone missing. What happens now? Isabella asked, trying to keep the anxiety out of her voice. Doctor Martinez and Daniel exchanged glances. Well, normally we would contact family or friends, the doctor said carefully. But since you can't remember and there's no identification, she can stay with us, Daniel said suddenly, surprising both women. I mean temporarily, until her memory comes back or someone comes looking for her. Isabella stared at him in shock. You don't even know me. I could be anyone, a criminal or crazy, or you're an 18-year-old girl who was in a terrible accident, Daniel interrupted gently. You need somewhere safe to recover. My daughter Riley and I have a spare room, and it's the least I can do after what you've been through. Dr. Martinez looked uncertain. Mr. Anderson, that's very generous, but there are protocols for situations like this. Social services usually handles cases where the patient has no family contacts. Please, Isabella said, the words slipping out before she could stop it. The thought of being processed through the system, of official reports and government databases that her father could access, terrified her more than staying with this kind stranger. I don't want to be a burden on social services. If Mr. Anderson is willing to help, Daniel smiled at her. It's just Daniel, and you're not a burden. My daughter will probably enjoy having another woman around the house for a change. Dr. Martinez still looked hesitant. I would need some assurances, emergency contact information, regular check-ins. Of course, Daniel said immediately. Whatever you need to feel comfortable with the arrangement. As they worked out the details, Isabella felt a strange mixture of guilt and gratitude. This man was opening his home to her based on nothing but kindness, while she was lying to him about who she was. But what choice did she have? If she revealed her true identity, she would be back under her father's control within hours. There is one more thing, Dr. Martinez said, pulling out a small plastic bag. This was around your neck when you arrived. We had to cut the chain to treat your injuries, but we saved it. Isabella's breath caught in her throat as she saw her mother's necklace, the simple gold heart that had been her constant companion and source of comfort. She clutched it to her chest, tears springing to her eyes. It's beautiful, Daniel observed. Does it help you remember anything? Isabella nodded, not trusting her voice. She remembered everything about the necklace, her mother's gentle hands placing it around her neck on her 10th birthday, the stories about how it had belonged to her grandmother, the way her mother had told her it would keep her safe even when they couldn't be together. My mother gave it to me, she whispered, which was the truth, even if everything else was a lie. Dr. Martinez completed the discharge paperwork while Daniel went to move his truck closer to the hospital entrance. Left alone for a moment, Isabella stared out the window at the Denver skyline in the distance. Somewhere out there, her father was probably discovering her absence, mobilizing his security team, calling in favors to track her down. But for now, she was just a girl with a head injury who needed help recovering. For now, She could be anyone she wanted to be, free from the weight of expectations and family legacy. When Daniel returned to escort her to the parking garage, Isabella made a decision that would complicate both their lives in ways neither of them could imagine. She would stay with this kind man and his daughter. She would heal from her injuries, and she would figure out what kind of person Isabella could be when she wasn't Richard Jones's daughter. As Daniel helped her into the passenger seat of his truck, Isabella caught sight of her reflection in the side mirror. Her long hair was tangled and dirty, her expensive clothes were torn and stained with blood and soot, and she looked nothing like the pampered heiress who had fled her father's mansion just hours earlier. Maybe that was exactly what she needed. To disappear completely, even from herself, until she could figure out who she really wanted to be. The Anderson home was nothing like what Isabella had expected. As Daniel's truck wound up a narrow dirt road through towering pine trees, she found herself holding her breath, unsure of what awaited her. When they finally pulled into a small clearing, she saw a modest log cabin with a wraparound porch, flower boxes under the windows, and smoke curling from a stone chimney. It was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with money or status. Beautiful because it felt lived in and loved. "Home, sweet home," Daniel said, turning off the engine. "It's not much, but it's ours." Isabella stared at the cabin, trying to process her emotions. After 18 years in a mansion with 37 rooms, most of which she rarely entered, this small home felt more welcoming than anywhere she'd ever lived. There were wind chimes on the porch that sang softly in the mountain breeze, a vegetable garden to one side that showed someone cared about growing their own food, and a tire swing hanging from an enormous oak tree. "It's perfect," she said, meaning it completely. The front door burst open before they could even get out of the truck, and a teenage girl with wild curly hair and paint-stained fingers came bounding down the porch steps. This had to be Riley, Daniel's daughter. She looked about 16, with her father's kind eyes, but an energy that seemed barely contained. "Dad, you're finally home. I was starting to worry that..." Riley stopped mid-sentence when she saw Isabella slowly getting out of the passenger side. "Oh, hi. Riley, this is Isabella," Daniel said, moving to help Isabella navigate the uneven ground with her injured leg. "She's going to be staying with us for a while she recovers from an accident." Riley's eyes widened as she took in Isabella's appearance. The hospital bracelet, the visible cuts and bruises, the way she moved carefully like everything hurt. "Oh my God, what happened? Are you okay?" "Car accident," Isabella said simply, already feeling guilty about the deception she was about to maintain. "Your dad saved my life. Saved my life." "That's so like him," Riley said, rolling her eyes with obvious affection. "He once drove 40 miles out of his way to return a wallet he found in a gas station parking lot. I'm Riley, by the way, and don't let Dad fool you. He's probably more excited about having someone to cook for than you are about being cooked for. He's been experimenting with bread recipes lately, and I've been his unwilling test subject." Isabella found herself smiling for the first time since the accident. There was something infectious about Riley's energy, a warmth that had nothing to do with politeness or social expectations. Inside, the cabin was even more charming. The main room combined kitchen, dining, and living areas with exposed wooden beams and a stone fireplace that dominated one wall. Bookshelves lined every available space, filled with an eclectic mix of novels, cookbooks, and what looked like Riley's art books. The furniture was mismatched but comfortable, clearly chosen for function over fashion. "I put fresh sheets on the guest bed," Daniel said, leading Isabella down a short hallway. "The bathroom is right next door. I know it's not much." "It's wonderful," Isabella interrupted, and she meant it. The guest room was small but cozy, with a handmade quilt on the bed, a window that looked out into the forest, and a small desk with a reading lamp. After years of sleeping in a bedroom suite larger than this entire cabin, the intimate scale felt like a warm hug. Over the next few days, Isabella discovered what it felt like to be part of a real family. Daniel left early each morning for his delivery routes, but not before making sure both girls had everything they needed. He would leave notes on the kitchen counter, reminders for Riley about homework or chores, gentle suggestions for Isabella about taking her pain medication or resting when she needed to. Riley was supposed to be in school, but it was fall break, which meant Isabella wasn't alone during the days. The teenager appointed herself as Isabella's unofficial guide to normal life, a concept that was entirely foreign to someone who had grown up with staff to handle every daily need. "You've never done laundry?" Riley asked in amazement, watching Isabella stare at the washing machine like it was a piece of alien technology. "I mean, I've seen it done," Isabella said defensively, which was technically true. She had observed the household staff countless times. "I just never actually did it myself." Riley launched into an enthusiastic tutorial on laundry basics, followed by lessons in basic cooking, grocery shopping on a budget, and what she called the fine art of making something out of nothing. Isabella found herself genuinely fascinated by these ordinary tasks that most people took for granted. "Where did you grow up?" Riley asked one afternoon as they worked together to prepare dinner. "Like, what kind of place doesn't teach you how to scramble eggs?" Isabella's hands stilled on the vegetables she was chopping. She had been dreading this question, knowing it would come eventually. I lived with my father," she said carefully. "He was very controlling. I wasn't allowed to do much for myself. It wasn't entirely a lie, which made it easier to say." Riley's expression shifted to one of understanding and sympathy. "That sucks," she said simply. "My mom used to say that the best gift you can give someone is teaching them to take care of themselves. She made sure I knew how to cook and clean and manage money before." Riley's voice trailed off, and Isabella saw a shadow of old pain cross her features. "Before." "What?" Isabella asked gently. "Before she died," Riley said, her voice matter-of-fact but her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Cancer, 3 years ago. Dad and I had to figure out a lot of stuff on our own after that." Isabella felt her heart clench with sympathy. "I'm so sorry. I lost my mother too when I was 10, also cancer." Riley looked up from the onions she was dicing, and something passed between them. A recognition of shared loss that created an instant bond. "It sucks, doesn't it? Everyone always says it gets easier, but I think it just gets different." "Yeah," Isabella agreed, thinking of all the times she had wished her mother was there to protect her from her father's ambitions, to advocate for her dreams, to simply hold her when everything felt overwhelming. Different, but not easier. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, each lost in their own memories. Isabella found herself thinking about how different this conversation was from any she'd had in her old life. Riley wasn't trying to impress her or gain anything from her. She was just sharing her truth because Isabella had shared hers. When Daniel came home that evening, he found them laughing in the kitchen, flour in their hair, and what looked like the remnants of a baking disaster covering every surface. "What happened here?" he asked. But he was smiling as he surveyed the chaos. "Isabella wanted to learn to make bread," Riley announced. "Turns out there's a big difference between watching someone do something and actually doing it yourself." "The first loaf exploded in the oven," Isabella added, still giggling. "I had no idea that could happen." Daniel looked between the two of them, his daughter covered in flour and grinning, and this mysterious young woman who was fitting into their lives like she belonged there, and felt something he hadn't experienced since Sarah's death. His house felt like a home again, filled with laughter and the kind of chaos that comes from people actually living in a space rather than just existing in it. "Well," he said, rolling up his sleeves, "let's see if we can salvage dinner. And maybe I can teach you both the secret to bread that doesn't explode." As they worked together to clean up the kitchen and start over with dinner, Isabella felt something she had never experienced before. The simple joy of being useful, of contributing to something larger than herself, of being valued, not for what she could provide, but for who she was as a person. For the first time since leaving her father's mansion, Isabella began to understand what she had been running toward, not just what she had been running from. She had been seeking this, a place where she could be herself without apology, where her value wasn't measured in dollars or social connections, where love was given freely without conditions or expectations. As they sat down to eat their successfully non-exploding bread, Isabella caught Daniel watching her with a gentle smile, and she felt her cheeks warm with something that had nothing to do with the fireplace. She was falling in love with this life, with this family that had welcomed her without question, and increasingly with the man who had saved her in more ways than he would ever know. But beneath the warmth and growing affection, a cold thread of guilt wound its way through her happiness. Every day that passed, every moment of genuine connection made her deception feel heavier. These people were giving her their trust, their love, their home, and she was lying to them about who she was. Sooner or later, the truth would come out. And when it did, Isabella wasn't sure if the family she was learning to love would ever forgive her. 2 weeks into her stay with the Anderson family, Isabella had almost convinced herself that her old life had been nothing more than a nightmare. She woke each morning to the sound of Daniel making coffee in the kitchen, spent her days learning life skills with Riley, and fell asleep each night feeling more at peace than she had in years. The bruises from the accident had faded, her ribs no longer ached, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged somewhere. But that fragile peace shattered on a Tuesday morning when Riley came running into the kitchen, her face flushed with excitement and her phone clutched in her hand. "Oh my God, Isabella, you have to see this," Riley exclaimed, practically bouncing with energy. "There's this huge missing person story all over the news, and the girl looks exactly like you." Isabella's blood turned to ice. She had been standing at the stove, attempting to flip pancakes without burning them, another skill Riley had been teaching her. But now the spatula slipped from her numb fingers and clattered to the floor. "What?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sudden roaring in her ears. Riley didn't notice Isabella's reaction, too caught up in her discovery. "Look at this!" She thrust her phone toward Isabella, and there it was, her own face staring back at her from a news article. It was her official portrait from the Jones Foundation charity gala last year, the one where she wore the emerald dress Victoria had chosen and smiled the practiced smile she'd been perfecting since childhood. The headline read, "Billionaires, daughter missing. Isabella Jones vanishes after family dispute. $100,000 reward offered." Isabella sank into the nearest chair, her legs suddenly unable to support her. The article was everything she had feared. Her father spinning the story to make himself look like the concerned parent while painting her as an unstable teenager who had run away from home. There were quotes from family friends expressing worry about her fragile mental state and speculation about whether she had been kidnapped or had simply suffered some kind of breakdown. "The resemblance is incredible," Riley continued, still oblivious to Isabella's panic. "Same hair, same eyes, even the same bone structure. Do you think you could be related? Maybe a cousin or something? Isabella stared at the screen, reading the details that confirmed her worst fears. Her father had mobilized every resource at his disposal. Private investigators, security firms, even FBI contacts. The reward money would ensure that every person in Colorado would be looking for her. It was only a matter of time before someone recognized her. "Isabella?" Riley's voice sounded distant, as if coming from underwater. "Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Isabella started, then stopped. The lie she had been living for 2 weeks suddenly felt impossible to maintain. Every moment of happiness, every genuine connection she had built with Daniel and Riley had been founded on deception. They deserved better than that. They deserved the truth, but before she could force the words out, Daniel appeared in the doorway, his work clothes already on and his keys in his hand. "Morning, ladies," he said with his usual warm smile. "Smells like someone's actually succeeding. At breakfast for once." Riley immediately rushed to her father, phone still in hand. "Dad, you have to see this. There's this missing girl who looks exactly like Isabella. Same everything, isn't that weird?" Daniel took the phone, his expression casual at first, but Isabella watched as his face slowly changed. His eyes moved from the screen to her face, then back to the screen, and she saw the exact moment when recognition dawned. His smile faded, replaced by confusion, then hurt, then something that looked almost like betrayal. "Isabella," he said, quietly, his voice carefully controlled. "Is there something you need to tell us?" The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken truths and shattered trust. Riley looked back and forth between them, her excitement fading as she began to understand that something was very wrong. Isabella's voice cracked. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind dozens of times, but now that it was here, she couldn't find the words. "I can explain." "Explain what?" Riley asked, her voice small and confused. "Isabella, what's going on?" Isabella looked at these two people who had become her family, who had given her love and acceptance without asking for anything in return, and felt her heart break. "My name is Isabella Jones," she whispered. "I'm the missing girl in that article." The words fell into the kitchen like stones into still water, creating ripples of shock and disbelief. Riley's mouth fell open, her phone sliding from her suddenly nerveless fingers. Daniel just stared at Isabella, his kind eyes filled with hurt and confusion. "You're..." Riley started, then stopped. "You're a billionaire's daughter." "I ran away," Isabella said quickly, desperate to make them understand. "My father was forcing me into an arranged marriage. I couldn't stay there anymore, so I took his car and ran. That's why I crashed. I was driving too fast because I was crying, and there was a deer..." "And the memory loss?" Daniel asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "The confusion about your name." Isabella's face burned with shame. "I lied. I remembered everything, but I was scared that if you knew who I was, you'd send me back to him. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far." Riley sank into a chair, staring at Isabella like she was seeing her for the first time. "So everything was a lie? The whole time we were bonding, sharing stories about our moms, teaching you how to cook? You were just pretending?" "No," Isabella said urgently. "Everything I told you about my mother, about losing her, about feeling trapped, that was all true. The only thing I lied about was my name and having amnesia. Everything else, every moment we shared, was real." Daniel set Riley's phone down on the counter with careful precision, his movements controlled but tense. "Do you have any idea what you've done? We've been harboring a missing person. The police are looking for you. Your family is looking for you. We could be charged with kidnapping." "I never meant for you to get in trouble," Isabella said, tears streaming down her face now. "I just needed somewhere safe to figure out what to do. I was going to tell you the truth. I just needed more time." "Time for what?" Daniel asked, and there was an edge to his voice that Isabella had never heard before. "Time to let us get more attached to you before you disappeared back to your real life. Time to let Riley get hurt when you inevitably left." "It's not like that," Isabella pleaded. "I don't want to go back to that life. I want to stay here with you and Riley. This is the first place I've ever felt like I belonged." Riley stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "But you don't belong here, do you? You're Isabella Jones, daughter of some tech billionaire. You probably have more money in your trust fund than Dad makes in 10 years. This whole thing, living in our tiny cabin, learning to do laundry, pretending to care about our lives, it was just like playing house for you. That's not true, Isabella said desperately. I do care about your lives. I care about both of you more than I've ever cared about anyone. But you still lied to us, Daniel said simply. For 2 weeks you looked us in the eye every day and lied. How are we supposed to trust anything you say now? Isabella felt like she was drowning. Everything she had feared was happening. The people she loved were looking at her with hurt and suspicion, and she could see the walls going back up around their hearts. The warmth and acceptance she had basked in for 2 weeks was being replaced by cold distance. I know I messed up, she said, her voice breaking. I know I should have told you from the beginning. But I was scared and desperate, and when you were so kind to me without knowing who I was, it felt like a gift. For the first time in my life, someone cared about me for me, not for my money or my connections or what I could do for them. And now? Daniel asked. What happens now? Do you go back to your father? Do we call the police and turn you in? Do we pretend this conversation never happened? Isabella wiped her tears with the back of her hand, trying to think through the panic and heartbreak. There's something else you need to know, she said quietly. About why I can't go back. Riley and Daniel waited, their faces guarded but still listening. My father isn't just forcing me into marriage, Isabella continued. He's threatening to cut me off completely if I don't comply. No money, no family, no support system. But it's more than that. Harrison Clark, the man I'm supposed to marry, has a reputation for controlling his relationships. There are rumors about his previous girlfriends, about how they ended up isolated from their friends and families. She took a shaky breath. I'm not just running from an arranged marriage. I'm running from what I believe would be an abusive situation that my father is willing to put me in for the sake of a business deal. Daniel's expression softened slightly, but the hurt was still there. Isabella, if that's true, then there are legal ways to handle it. Emancipation, protective orders, organizations that help people in your situation, not when your father owns half the judges in the state, Isabella said bitterly. Not when you're 18 and technically an adult who can be painted as mentally unstable or rebellious. My father has already started the narrative. I'm the troubled heiress who can't handle responsibility. Riley, who had been quiet during this exchange, suddenly spoke up. So what do you want from us? What are you asking us to do? Isabella looked at both of them, these people who had become her family, and felt the weight of her choices pressing down on her. I don't know, she admitted. I just know that I can't go back to that life, and I know that these past 2 weeks with you have been the happiest I've ever been. I'm willing to give up everything, the money, the inheritance, all of it, to stay here and build a real life. Daniel and Riley exchanged a look, communicating in the way that families do, with glances and subtle expressions that spoke volumes. We need time to think, Daniel said finally. This changes everything, Isabella. We need to figure out what's legal, what's safe, and what's right. Isabella nodded, understanding that this was probably the best she could hope for. I understand, and I want you to know that whatever you decide, I'm grateful for what you've given me. For the first time in my life, I know what it feels like to be part of a real family. As Daniel left for work and Riley retreated to her room, Isabella sat, alone in the kitchen, staring at the abandoned pancakes on the stove. The truth was finally out, but instead of feeling relieved, she felt like she had lost everything that mattered most. The silence in the Anderson household over the next 3 days was deafening. Daniel left for work earlier and came home later, avoiding extended conversations. Riley spent most of her time in her room, emerging only for meals that were eaten in uncomfortable quiet. Isabella felt like a ghost, haunting the home that had briefly been her sanctuary, watching the family she loved pull away from her. On Thursday evening, as Isabella sat alone on the front porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and crimson, she heard the crunch of gravel that announced Daniel's return from his delivery route. Instead of going straight inside, as he had been doing, he walked up the porch steps and sat down beside her on the wooden swing. "We need to talk," he said quietly, his voice carrying none of its usual warmth but also lacking the hurt that had been there. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the forest. "I've been doing research," he said finally, "about your family, about the business dealings, about Heiress and Clark." Isabella turned to look at him, surprised. "You have." Riley might have inherited her mother's artistic talents, but she got my stubborn streak. She's been digging into this too, using her computer skills to find information that isn't in the mainstream news articles. Daniel's expression was grim. "What we found, Isabella, you're in more danger than I think even you realize." A chill ran down Isabella's spine that had nothing to do with the mountain air. "What do you mean?" Daniel pulled out his phone and showed her a series of screenshots. Heiress and Clark has been engaged 3 times in the past 5 years. All 3 previous fiancés broke off their engagements, and all 3 left the state immediately afterward. One filed for a restraining order that was mysteriously dropped 2 weeks later. Another was hospitalized for exhaustion right before. Calling off the wedding, Isabella's hands trembled as she scrolled through the information. She'd suspected that Harrison was controlling, but seeing the pattern laid out so clearly made her stomach turn. "My father knows about this?" "Your father's business is struggling more than the public realizes," Daniel continued. "He needs the Clark pharmaceutical merger to stay afloat. Riley found financial reports that suggest he's willing to overlook a lot to make this deal happen. So he's not just selling me off for profit," Isabella said bitterly. "He's doing it for survival." "There's more." Daniel's voice was heavy. "The private investigators your father hired aren't just looking for you. They're building a case to have you declared mentally incompetent. If they can prove you're unstable, your father can become your legal guardian again, even though you're 18. Isabella felt the blood drain from her face. "He can do that? With the right lawyers and the right judges, yes, especially if they can frame your running away as evidence of a mental breakdown." Daniel turned to face her fully. "Isabella, if they find you and drag you back, you might not get another chance to escape." The weight of the situation settled over Isabella like a heavy blanket. She had thought she was running from an unwanted marriage, but she was actually running from something much more sinister. A systematic plan to rob her of her autonomy and agency. "What am I supposed to do?" she whispered. "We're going to help you," Daniel said, and the simple certainty in his voice made Isabella's eyes fill with tears. "We?" The front door opened, and Riley stepped out onto the porch. Her expression was still guarded, but there was determination in her eyes that reminded Isabella strongly of her father. "I'm still mad at you for lying," Riley said without preamble. "But after reading about what your father and that Clark guy are planning to do to you, I'm more mad at them." Isabella looked between Daniel and Riley, hardly daring to hope. "You're going to help me, even after everything?" "You made a stupid choice in how you handled this," Daniel said. "But you were 18, scared and desperate. Your father and Harrison Clark are grown men, making calculated decisions to control and potentially abuse a young woman. There's a difference." Riley sat down on Isabella's other side. "Besides, you're family now, and family doesn't abandon each other, even when they make really dumb decisions." Isabella burst into tears, overwhelmed by relief and gratitude. For a moment she couldn't speak, could only lean into the warmth of these 2 people who were choosing to stand by her despite everything. "So what's the plan?" she finally managed to ask. Daniel and Riley exchanged a look. "We've been working on that," Riley said. Dad has a friend who's a lawyer, someone who specializes in cases like yours. We're going to contact her tomorrow. But first, Daniel added, we need to make sure you're safe while we figure out the legal options. The news coverage is intensifying, and it's only a matter of time before someone recognizes you. Over the next hour, they developed their strategy. Daniel would take some time off work, claiming a family emergency. Riley would stay home from school, officially due to a family situation. They would keep Isabella inside and away from windows, and they would start documenting everything: her father's threats, Harrison Clark's history, the circumstances that led to her running away. There's something else we need to consider, Daniel said as they prepared to go inside. Your father's investigators are going to start canvassing hospitals, looking for anyone matching your description who was treated around the time you disappeared. Isabella's heart sank. The hospital records, they'll find me. Maybe not, Riley said thoughtfully. You were admitted as a Jane Doe, remember? And Dad used his insurance information for the bills. As far as the official records show, Daniel, Anderson's friend, was in a car accident, not Isabella Jones. But someone might remember me, Isabella pointed out. A nurse, a doctor, someone who was working that night. Daniel nodded grimly. Which is why we need to move fast. We have maybe a week, 2 at most, before they connect the dots. That night, as Isabella lay in the guest room that had become her sanctuary, she stared at the ceiling and tried to process everything that had changed. 3 days ago, she had thought the worst thing that could happen was losing Daniel and Riley's trust. Now she understood that the real danger was much greater. Her father wasn't just trying to control her future, he was trying to erase her ability to have any future at all. But for the first time since the truth had come out, Isabella felt hope. She wasn't facing this alone anymore. She had people who cared about her, who were willing to fight for her, who saw her as more than just a pawn in someone else's game. The next morning brought their first real scare. Isabella was helping Riley with breakfast when Daniel's phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. Hello, Daniel answered cautiously. Is this Daniel Anderson? The voice was crisp, professional, unfamiliar. Who's asking? This is Marcus Webb from Webb Investigations. We're looking into the disappearance of Isabella Jones, and we have reason to believe you may have information that could help us locate her. Isabella's heart stopped. Daniel's eyes met hers across the kitchen, and she could see him thinking quickly. I'm sorry, but I don't know anyone by that name, Daniel said, his voice steady. You must have the wrong number. Mr. Anderson, we know that you were at Denver General Hospital on the night of October 15th. We also know that you left with a young woman who matched Isabella Jones's description. Isabella felt panic rising in her throat. They had found the connection. I helped someone who was in a car accident, Daniel said carefully, but she wasn't the person you're looking for. We'd like to speak with this person just to rule out any confusion. Where can we find her? She's no longer in the area, Daniel lied smoothly. She contacted her family and went home once she recovered from her injuries. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Mr. Anderson, I hope you understand that interfering with a missing person investigation is a serious matter. If you're withholding information about Isabella Jones's whereabouts, you could face criminal charges. I understand, Daniel said, but I can't help you with information I don't have. After he hung up, the three of them stood in the kitchen in stunned silence. They know, Isabella whispered. They know I was here. But they don't know you're still here, Riley pointed out. Dad bought us some time with that story about you. Leaving. Daniel was already moving, grabbing his keys and heading for the door. I'm going to see that lawyer friend of mine right now. We're out of time for planning. We need legal help, and we need it today. As Daniel drove away, leaving, Isabella and Riley alone in the cabin, Isabella couldn't shake the feeling that their peaceful interlude was over. The outside world had found them, and soon she would have to face the consequences of her choices, all of them. But as she looked at Riley, who was already pulling out her laptop to continue researching legal precedents for their situation, Isabella felt a surge of determination. She had spent 18 years letting other people make decisions for her life. Now, with the help of the family she had chosen, she was going to fight for the right to make her own choices, no matter what it cost. The storm was coming, but Isabella Jones was no longer the helpless girl who had fled her father's mansion in tears. She was someone who had learned what love and loyalty looked like, and she was ready to fight for both. Isabella had been living in the Anderson cabin for 3 weeks when her carefully constructed new world came crashing down around her. It started with what seemed like an ordinary Saturday morning. Daniel was at the lawyer's office, getting final details sorted for Isabella's emancipation petition. Riley was in town picking up supplies, and Isabella was alone in the cabin for the first time since the investigator's phone call 2 days earlier. She had been reading one of Sarah Anderson's old novels from the bookshelf, curled up in the window seat with a cup of tea, when she heard the sound of vehicles coming up the mountain road. Multiple vehicles moving slowly and deliberately. Isabella's blood turned to ice as she recognized the sound. It was exactly how her father's security team approached situations when they wanted to maintain the element of surprise. Peering through the curtains, Isabella saw 3 black SUVs winding their way up the narrow dirt road toward the cabin. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she recognized the lead vehicle. It was her father's personal security detail, the same team that had shadowed her movements for years, but that wasn't what made her legs go weak with terror. In the passenger seat of the lead vehicle, she could see a familiar figure, Harrison Clark himself, apparently taking a personal interest in retrieving his missing fiancée. Isabella's hands shook as she grabbed her phone to call Daniel, but the call went straight to voicemail. He was probably still in the lawyer's office, where cell service was spotty. She tried Riley next, with the same result. She was completely alone, with nowhere to run and no way to call for help. The SUVs pulled into the clearing around the cabin, positioning themselves to block any possible escape routes. Isabella watched in growing panic as 6 men in dark suits emerged from the vehicles, moving with military precision. These weren't just private investigators. They were professional security contractors, the kind her father employed when he needed problems to disappear quietly. The cabin's front door was solid wood, but Isabella knew it wouldn't hold against determined professionals. She had maybe 2 minutes before they breached the entrance, and then what? They would drag her back to Denver, back to her father's mansion, back to the life she had risked everything to escape. But as Isabella backed away from the window, her eyes fell on something that sparked a desperate idea. Riley's art supplies were scattered across the dining table, including several bottles of acrylic paint and a can of turpentine she had been using to clean brushes. Isabella had learned enough about chemistry from her private tutors to know that turpentine was highly flammable. Moving quickly but quietly, Isabella began to implement the only plan she could think of. If they wanted to take her by force, she would make sure it wasn't easy. The sound of heavy footsteps on the porch confirmed that her time was up. Isabella positioned herself behind the kitchen counter, Riley's biggest paintbrush in one hand and her phone in the other, ready to record whatever happened next. "Isabella Jones!" Harrison Clark's voice carried clearly through the door, cultured and confident. "I know you're in there. Your father is very worried about you, and we're here to take you home safely." Isabella said nothing, but her hands were steady as she unscrewed the cap on the turpentine bottle. She'd spent 3 weeks learning to cook and clean and do laundry, but growing up as Richard Jones's daughter had also taught her other skills. How to think strategically under pressure, how to assess threats and advantages, how to use whatever resources were available. "Isabella, be reasonable," Harrison continued, his tone shifting to what was probably meant to be soothing, but sounded patronizing to her ears. "You've had your little adventure, but it's time to come home. Your father has agreed not to press charges against the people who've been hiding you, but only if you come with us voluntarily." The door handle rattled, followed by the sound of someone working on the lock. They were coming in whether she cooperated or not. "I'm not going anywhere with you," Isabella called out, surprised by how steady her own voice sounded. "And I'm recording this conversation. If you enter this house without permission, you're breaking and entering." Harrison's laugh was cold. "Your father is your legal guardian in matters of your mental health, Isabella. We have documentation from 3 psychiatrists stating that you're suffering from dissociative episodes and are not competent to make decisions about your own welfare." Isabella's heart sank. They had actually done it. They had built a legal case to strip away her autonomy. But she wasn't the same frightened girl who had run away 3 weeks ago. Living with the Andersons had taught her something her privileged upbringing never had: how to fight for what mattered. The front door burst open with a crash of splintering wood. The security team moved in with professional efficiency, spreading out to secure the small space while Harrison entered behind them like a general surveying conquered territory. "There she is," Harrison said with satisfaction, spotting Isabella behind the kitchen counter. "Hello, darling. You've led us quite a chase." Isabella studied him with new eyes, seeing details she had missed during their formal family dinners, the way his gaze lingered possessively on her face and body, the slight smile that didn't reach his eyes, the casual way he gestured for his men to surround her, as if she were a piece of property to be collected. "I'm not going with you," Isabella repeated, her voice stronger now. "I'm 18 years old, and I have the right to choose where I live and who I marry." "Not according to these," Harrison said, pulling out a folder of legal documents. "Court orders declaring you mentally incompetent due to your recent erratic behavior. Your father is very concerned about your psychological state, Isabella. Running away in the middle of the night, living with strangers, refusing to return home. These are all signs of severe emotional disturbance. Or signs of a young woman trying to escape an abusive situation." Isabella shot back. "I know about your previous fiancés, Harrison. I know what happened to them." Harrison's pleasant mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. "I have no idea what you're talking about. You're clearly more disturbed than your father realized." That's when Isabella heard it. The sound of Daniel's truck coming up the mountain road, engines straining as he pushed it harder than usual. He must have seen the SUVs and realized what was happening. "Expecting someone?" Harrison asked, following her gaze toward the window. "I hope it's not that Anderson fellow. It would be unfortunate if he tried to interfere with the legal custody transfer." Isabella's blood ran cold. These men weren't just here to take her. They were prepared to deal with anyone who tried to stop them. Daniel was walking into a trap, and she was the bait. "Please," Isabella said, dropping the combative tone and letting genuine fear show in her voice. "Don't hurt him. He doesn't know anything about this. He just helped me after the accident. That depends entirely on how cooperative everyone is," Harrison replied smoothly. Daniel's truck pulled into the clearing, and Isabella watched through the window as he took in the scene. The SUVs, the broken door, the armed men visible through the windows. For a moment, he sat frozen in his truck, probably weighing his options. Then Daniel Anderson did something that would haunt Isabella's dreams for years to come. He grabbed something from his glove compartment and got out of the truck, walking straight toward the cabin like he was ready to take on all 6 armed men to protect her. "Dad, no!" Riley's voice cut through the mountain air as she appeared from behind one of the SUVs, apparently having arrived just moments after her father. There are too many of them." But Daniel was already at the porch steps, and Isabella could see the determination in his face through the window. This kind, gentle man who had already saved her life once was about to risk everything again, and she couldn't let that happen. "I'll go with you," Isabella announced suddenly, stepping out from behind the counter with her hands raised. "But only if you promise not to hurt them. They don't deserve to suffer because of my choices." Harrison smiled, victory clear in his expression. "I knew you'd see reason eventually. You always were a smart girl, Isabella." But as Isabella walked toward him, she palmed the open bottle of turpentine she had been holding, keeping it hidden. Behind her leg, she had one chance to even the odds, and she was going to take it. "Actually," Isabella said, stopping just out of Harrison's reach, "I lied. I'm not going anywhere with you." Before anyone could react, Isabella threw the turpentine across the room, soaking Harrison and two of his men. At the same time, she flicked Riley's lighter and tossed it toward the spilled liquid. The room erupted in chaos as flames spread across the wooden floor. The security team scrambled backward, shouting warnings about the fire, while Harrison cursed and tried to pat down his soaked clothing. In the confusion, Isabella heard Daniel's voice shouting her name from outside, and she made her choice. Instead of heading for the front door, where the security team was regrouping, she ran toward the back of the cabin. Toward the bedroom window that Riley had shown her led to a narrow ledge. As she climbed through the window, Isabella could hear Harrison screaming orders to his men, his cultured facade completely gone now. "Find her! Don't let her get away again!" Isabella dropped from the bedroom window onto the back porch roof, then scrambled down the support posts to the ground. Behind her, she could hear the security team crashing through the cabin, looking for her in rooms she was no longer in. She ran toward the tree line, hoping to lose herself in the forest until Daniel and Riley could get help. But as she reached the edge of the clearing, strong hands grabbed her from behind, and she found herself face to face with the largest of Harrison's security men. "Going somewhere, miss?" he asked with a cold smile. Isabella's desperate gambit had failed. She was caught, the cabin was on fire, and Daniel and Riley were somewhere in the chaos, probably in danger because of her. As the security man began, dragging her back toward the SUVs, Isabella realized that her fight for freedom might be over. The security man's grip on Isabella's arm was like iron, but as he dragged her back toward the SUVs, she could see that her desperate gamble with the fire had created more chaos than she'd realized. Smoke was pouring from the cabin windows, and two of Harrison's men were frantically beating at their singed clothing. More importantly, Daniel and Riley had used the confusion to position themselves strategically. Daniel behind his truck, with what looked like a tire iron in his hands, and Riley crouched behind one of the SUVs with her phone out, apparently filming everything. "Let her go!" Daniel shouted, his voice carrying across the clearing with an authority Isabella had never heard from him before. "You're trespassing on private property, and you have no legal right to take her against her will." Harrison, his expensive suit now reeking of turpentine and sporting scorch marks, emerged from the smoke-filled cabin with fury written across his face. "Mr. Anderson, you're interfering with a legal custody transfer. I have court orders." "Court orders based on fraudulent psychiatric evaluations," Riley called out, her young voice surprisingly steady. "I've been recording everything, and I've already uploaded it to the cloud. The whole world is going to see what you're really doing here." Isabella felt a surge of pride and terror as she watched this 16-year-old girl stand up to armed men on her behalf. Riley had grown up in this mountain community where people looked out for each other, and she was applying those same principles now, even in the face of overwhelming danger. "You little brat," Harrison snarled, his polished veneer completely gone now. "Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? Your father is a nobody, a delivery driver living in a shack. I could buy and sell him 100 times over." "Money doesn't make you right," Daniel replied, stepping out from behind his truck, "and it doesn't give you the right to terrorize a young woman who's clearly afraid of you." The security man holding Isabella tightened his grip, probably preparing to force her into one of the vehicles, but Isabella had been watching and waiting for her moment. During her weeks with the Anderson family, Riley had taught her more than just cooking and laundry. She had also shared some of the self-defense techniques she'd learned in a women's safety class at school. Isabella suddenly went limp, using her weight to throw the security man off balance, then drove her elbow back into his solar plexus as hard as she could. He gasped and loosened his grip, just enough for her to break free and run toward Daniel and Riley. "Stop her!" Harrison screamed. But the remaining security men were hesitant to pursue her too aggressively, with cameras rolling and witnesses present. Isabella reached Daniel just as the sound of sirens began echoing through the mountains. Someone, probably Riley during her frantic phone calls, had contacted the authorities and help was finally on the way. "This isn't over," Harrison said, his voice low and threatening as he watched the smoke from the cabin and listened to the approaching sirens. "Isabella, you can run from me now, but you can't run forever. Your father will never stop looking for you, and I will never stop wanting what's mine." "I'm not yours," Isabella said, stepping forward with Daniel and Riley flanking her like bodyguards. "I never was, and I never will be. I'd rather live in poverty for the rest of my life than spend one day as your wife." Harrison's face twisted with rage and something uglier, the entitled fury of a man who had never been denied anything he wanted. "You think these people care about you? You think they'll want you around when the money runs out and the legal bills start piling up? You're nothing but trouble, Isabella, a spoiled little rich girl playing at being normal." "She's family," Riley said simply, moving to stand beside Isabella, "and we protect our family." Daniel nodded, his arm coming around Isabella's shoulders in a gesture that was both protective and accepting. "You heard her. Isabella is under our protection now." The first police car came into view around the bend, followed by fire trucks responding to the cabin blaze. Harrison looked at the approaching vehicles, then at his scattered security team, then at Isabella standing defiantly with her chosen family. "This is far from over," he said, but there was defeat in his voice now. "Your father has resources you can't imagine, Isabella. He'll find other ways to bring you home. Then we'll fight those too," Daniel said firmly. "Every single time." As the police cars pulled into the clearing, Isabella felt a strange mixture of relief and apprehension. The immediate danger was over, but she knew Harrison was right about one thing. Her father wouldn't give up easily. Richard Jones had built his empire by never accepting defeat, and he wouldn't start now. But as she watched the police officers approach Harrison and his men, asking for identification and documentation, Isabella realized something important had changed. She was no longer facing this alone. She had Daniel and Riley beside her. She had evidence of Harrison's behavior, and she had finally found her own voice. The lead police officer, a woman in her 40s with sergeant's stripes on her uniform, approached their group. "I'm Sergeant Martinez. We received multiple reports of a disturbance and a possible kidnapping attempt. Can someone tell me what's going on here?" Riley immediately stepped forward, her phone still recording. "These men broke into our house and tried to kidnap Isabella against her will. I have video evidence of everything, including them admitting they have fake psychiatric evaluations to try to force her back to her father." Isabella watched as Harrison tried to charm the police officer, pulling out his legal documents and attempting to frame the situation as a simple family dispute. But Sergeant Martinez was clearly experienced in dealing with domestic situations, and she wasn't buying his smooth explanations. "Ma'am," Sergeant Martinez said, turning to Isabella, "are you here of your own free will?" "Yes," Isabella said clearly. "I'm 18 years old, I'm mentally competent, and I choose to stay with the Anderson family." I don't want to go back to my father or have any contact with Harrison Clark. She's been declared mentally incompetent, Harrison interjected, waving his papers. These people have been harboring a missing person and interfering with a legal custody arrangement. Sergeant Martinez examined the documents with a skeptical expression. These psychiatric evaluations were done without the subject being present for examination, she noted. That's highly irregular, and this court order is from a judge in Denver who doesn't have jurisdiction in this county. Isabella felt hope blooming in her chest as she watched Harrison's legal strategy crumble under scrutiny from someone who actually understood the law. Furthermore, Sergeant Martinez continued, breaking into someone's home and attempting to remove a person against their will is kidnapping, regardless of any paperwork you might have. You and your men are under arrest. As the handcuffs came out and Harrison was read his rights, he looked at Isabella with pure hatred. This isn't over, he said as he was led to the police car. You can't hide from your family forever, Isabella. You belong to us, and we always collect what's ours. But Isabella was no longer the frightened girl who had crashed her car in these mountains 3 weeks ago. She had learned what real love looked like, what it meant to be valued for who she was rather than what she represented, and what it felt like to have people willing to fight for her. I don't belong to anyone, she called after him. I belong with people who love me, and that's exactly where I'm staying. As the police cars drove away with Harrison and his security team, Isabella turned to look at the cabin that had been her sanctuary. The fire had been contained to one room, and the damage was mostly smoke-related, but it would need significant repairs. I'm so sorry, she said to Daniel and Riley, tears streaming down her face. I destroyed your home. I put you both in danger. You saved us, Daniel interrupted, pulling her into a hug. If you hadn't created that distraction, if you hadn't given us the chance to call for help, this could have ended very differently. Riley joined the hug, squeezing Isabella tight. Besides, we can fix the cabin. We can't fix losing you. As the three of them stood together in the clearing, surrounded by the evidence of their battle and the promise of the legal fights still to come, Isabella felt something she had never experienced before. The absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. The fight for her freedom was far from over, but she was no longer fighting it alone. She had a family worth fighting for, and they had her back, no matter what came next. 6 months after the confrontation at the cabin, Isabella stood in the courthouse steps in Denver, clutching a manila folder that contained the most important documents of her life. The late spring sun felt warm on her face as she read the court order one more time, hardly believing the words were real. Legal emancipation granted. Isabella Marie Jones is hereby declared legally independent of parental authority and financially responsible for her own welfare, effective immediately. Beside her, Daniel squeezed her shoulder gently. How does it feel to be officially free? Isabella looked up at him, this man who had saved her life in more ways than one, and felt tears of joy threatening to spill over. It feels like I can finally breathe. The legal battle had been long and brutal. Richard Jones had used every resource at his disposal to fight the emancipation petition, hiring the most expensive lawyers in Colorado and pulling strings with judges who owed him favors. He had painted Isabella as an unstable teenager who had been manipulated by the Anderson family, claiming they were after her inheritance money. But Isabella had something her father hadn't counted on, the truth, and people willing to fight for it. Riley had become something of a local hero for her role in documenting Harrison Clark's attempted kidnapping. Her video evidence had been crucial, not just in the criminal case against Harrison, but in exposing the fraudulent psychiatric evaluations that had been used to try to declare Isabella mentally incompetent. The media is calling you the Mountain, Heiress now, Riley said, reading from her phone as they walked toward Daniel's truck. Listen to this headline. Brave teen exposes billionaire's abuse of power, wins right to choose her own life. Isabella grimaced. She still hated being in the spotlight, but her lawyer had convinced her that public attention was actually helping her case. The story of an 18-year-old heiress choosing love over money had captured the public imagination, and the resulting pressure had made it harder for her father to manipulate the legal system. What does it say about the criminal case? Daniel asked as they drove away from the courthouse. Riley scrolled through the article. Harrison Clark pled guilty to attempted kidnapping and conspiracy charges. He got 2 years in prison, plus a restraining order that prevents him from contacting Isabella for the next 10 years. Isabella felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For months, she'd been looking over her shoulder, waiting for Harrison to make another move. Knowing he was behind bars meant she could finally start planning a future without fear. And Dad? Isabella asked quietly. Even after everything that had happened, part of her still hoped Richard Jones might try to rebuild their relationship. Riley's expression grew somber. He's facing federal charges for the fake psychiatric evaluations. Apparently, when the FBI started investigating, they found evidence that he's done this before. To business partners, former employees, even his own sister when she tried to challenge his control of the family company. Isabella wasn't surprised, but it still hurt. She had spent 18 years hoping her father might love her enough to choose her happiness over his ambitions. Now she finally had her answer. The drive back to the mountains was quiet, each of them lost in their own thoughts. Over the past 6 months, their small family had been through more stress and change than most people experience in years. The cabin had been repaired and was more beautiful than ever, but the real transformation had been in their relationships. Daniel had taken a leave of absence from his delivery job to focus on the legal battle, using his savings to hire the lawyer who had ultimately won Isabella's case. Isabella had tried to refuse his help, knowing how much it was costing him, but he had been adamant. "You're my daughter now," he had said simply, "and parents take care of their children." Riley had deferred her senior year of high school to help with the case despite Isabella's protests. "You're my sister," she had said, echoing her father's sentiment, "and sisters stick together." Now, with the legal victory behind them, it was time to figure out what came next. "I've been thinking," Isabella said as they pulled into the familiar clearing around the cabin, "about what I want to do with my life, now that I'm actually free to choose." Daniel and Riley both turned to look at her expectantly. "I want to go to college," Isabella continued, "but not because someone else thinks I should. Because I want to study psychology and social work. I want to help other young people who are trapped in situations like mine." "That's perfect," Riley said with genuine enthusiasm. "You already know what it's like to feel powerless, and you know how to fight back. You could help so many people." "There's something else," Isabella said, her voice growing more serious. "I've been in contact with my father's accountants. It turns out that the emancipation ruling means I have access to my mother's inheritance, money that was supposed to be mine when I turned 21, but that my father has been controlling." Daniel looked uncomfortable. "Isabella, you don't owe us anything. We didn't help you for money." "I know that," Isabella said quickly. "That's exactly why I want to share it with you. You saved my life, gave me a home, fought for my freedom. You're my family now, and families take care of each of them." She pulled out another folder from her bag, this one containing financial documents. "My mother left me $12 million. I want to set up a trust fund that will pay for Riley's college education, cover the cabin repairs, and give you both financial security for the rest of your lives." Riley's eyes went wide. "Isabella, that's too much. We can't accept." "Yes, you can," Isabella interrupted, because this isn't charity. This is family, and besides, I'm keeping plenty for myself. Enough to pay for college, to start my foundation, to build the life I actually want, instead of the one that was chosen for me. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, staring at the documents in Isabella's hands. Are you sure about this? Once you start giving away that money, your father might see it as a way to attack you again. Isabella smiled, and for the first time in months it was completely free of fear or sadness. Let him try. I'm not the same girl who ran away from his mansion 6 months ago. I know who I am now. I know what I'm worth. And I know that my value has nothing to do with how much money I have. That evening, as they sat around the dinner table that had become the center of their family life, Isabella felt a peace she had never known was possible. Outside, the Colorado mountains stood silent and protective, just as they had the night Daniel had pulled her from that burning car. I have one more thing to tell you, Isabella said as they were cleaning up after dinner. I've been accepted to Colorado State University for the fall semester. I'm going to study psychology with a focus on trauma counseling. That's wonderful, Daniel said, but Isabella could hear the question in his voice. Would she be moving away, starting a new chapter that didn't include them? I'll be commuting from here, Isabella added quickly. If that's okay with you. This is my home now. You're my family. I don't want to live anywhere else. Riley whooped with joy and threw her arms around Isabella. Of course it's okay. We wouldn't want you anywhere else. Daniel joined the hug, and as the three of them stood together in their kitchen, Isabella thought about how much had changed since that terrifying night when she had fled her father's mansion in desperation. She'd been running from a life that felt like a prison, but she had found something better than freedom. She had found belonging. She had found people who loved her not for what she could give them, but for who she was. She had found the courage to fight for what mattered most. Most importantly, she had found herself. Not Isabella Jones, the billionaire's daughter, but Isabella Anderson, the young woman who had chosen her own family, her own path, her own future. The legal battles were over, the threats had been neutralized, and the healing could finally begin. Isabella was no longer running from anything. She was running toward everything. College, her career helping others, a life built on love instead of fear. As she looked around the cabin that had become her sanctuary, at the family that had become her anchor, Isabella knew that every sacrifice had been worth it. She was finally, truly free to become whoever she wanted to be, and what she wanted to be was exactly who she already was. A daughter, a sister, a survivor, and a young woman ready to change the world, one person at a time. 2 years later, Isabella stood in front of a room full of young women at the Safe Haven Foundation, the non-profit organization she had established with her inheritance money. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows of the converted warehouse in downtown Denver, illuminating faces that reminded her so much of herself 2 years ago, frightened, desperate, but still fighting for something better. My name is Isabella Anderson, she began, using the surname she had legally adopted after Daniel and Riley had officially become her family. And like many of you, I know what it feels like to be trapped in a life that someone else chose for you. At 20, Isabella had grown into the confidence that had started as desperate courage in a burning car. Her long, dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore jeans and a foundation t-shirt instead of designer clothes. But it was her eyes that showed the most dramatic change. Where there had once been fear and uncertainty, now there was purpose and unshakable self-worth. 2 years ago, I was exactly where many of you are now. I was being forced into an arranged marriage, threatened with losing everything if I didn't comply, and told by everyone around me that I had no choice but to accept the life that had been planned for me. Isabella's voice was steady, warm, and filled with the kind of understanding that could only come from lived experience. In the back of the room, Daniel and Riley sat together, watching with obvious pride as Isabella shared her story. Daniel, now 47, had silver threading through his hair, but his smile was brighter than it had been in years. Riley, 18, and about to start her freshman year at Colorado State University on a full scholarship funded by Isabella's foundation, beamed as she recorded her sister's speech on her phone. "I want to tell you about the night that changed everything," Isabella continued. "I was driving through the mountains, crying and desperate, when I crashed my car. I thought my life was over. But that crash led me to the most important people in my world, my real family, the people who taught me that love isn't about control, it's about freedom to be yourself." Among the young women in the audience, Isabella spotted several faces she recognized from their private counseling sessions. There was Maria, 17, who had escaped a forced marriage arrangement set up by her extended family. Sarah, 19, who was working to break free from her controlling boyfriend and his family's financial manipulation. Jessica, 18, whose parents had threatened to disown her for refusing to marry someone from their religious community. Each of them had found their way to the Safe Haven Foundation through different paths. Some through social workers, others through word of mouth, a few through the Foundation's website that Riley maintained with surprising skill for someone her age. But they all shared the same need, a safe place to rebuild their lives on their own terms. The hardest part wasn't escaping, Isabella said, addressing the room but thinking of her own journey. The hardest part was learning to trust that I deserved better, that I was worth more than what I could provide to other people, that my dreams and my choices mattered. She gestured to a wall covered with photos, young women who had come through the Foundation's programs and were now living independent lives. College graduates, working professionals, mothers raising their own daughters to be strong and independent, artists and writers and teachers and entrepreneurs. "These are your sisters," Isabella said. "Women who found the courage to choose themselves, to fight for their own futures, to believe that they deserved love that didn't come with conditions or ultimatums." After her speech, Isabella moved through the room, talking individually with the young women who had questions or just needed someone to listen. This was her favorite part of the Foundation work, the one-on-one conversations where real healing happened. "How did you know?" asked a 16-year-old named Elena, her voice barely above a whisper. "How did you know it was worth giving up?" "Everything." Isabella sat down beside her, remembering her own terror at that age. "Because I realized that what I thought was everything was actually nothing. Money, status, family approval, none of it meant anything if I couldn't be myself. And once I found people who loved me for who I really was, I discovered that I already had everything that actually mattered." As the afternoon session ended and the young women began to leave, many of them heading to the Foundation's residential facility where they could stay while getting back on their feet, Isabella felt the familiar satisfaction that came from work that truly mattered. "Another successful group," Daniel said, approaching her with Riley close behind. "They remind me of you," Riley added, giving Isabella a hug. "Same stubborn determination to build something better." Isabella laughed. "I learned from the best, both of you." The three of them walked out of the Foundation building together, past the sign that read, "Safe Haven Foundation, where every story gets a new chapter." Isabella had insisted on that motto because it reflected her own experience. Her life hadn't ended when she crashed that car in the mountains. It had actually begun. "Dinner at home tonight?" Daniel asked as they reached their cars. Isabella still lived in the mountain cabin with Daniel and Riley, though she maintained an apartment in Denver for when her Foundation work required her to stay in the city. "Absolutely," Isabella said. "I'll cook." "God help us all," Riley teased. which earned her a playful shove from Isabella. As they drove back toward the mountains, Isabella reflected on how completely her life had changed. She was halfway through her psychology degree, specializing in trauma counseling and family therapy. The Safe Haven Foundation was thriving, having helped over 200 young women escape controlling family situations in just 2 years of operation. And most importantly, she woke up every morning excited about the day ahead instead of dreading it. Her relationship with her birth father had never recovered. Richard Jones was serving a 5-year federal sentence for his role in the fraudulent psychiatric evaluations and had lost control of most of his business empire. He had made a few attempts to contact Isabella through lawyers, but she had made it clear that she had no interest in reconciliation unless he was willing to accept responsibility for his actions. So far, he had not been. That evening, as the 3 of them prepared dinner together in the cabin kitchen, the same kitchen where Isabella had first learned to crack eggs without getting shells in the bowl, Daniel made an announcement that caught both women by surprise. "I have something to tell you both," he said, looking nervous in a way that was completely unlike him. "I've been seeing someone." Isabella and Riley exchanged glances, then broke into identical grins. "Finally," Riley exclaimed. "We were wondering when you were going to tell us about your mysterious Wednesday evening plans." Daniel looked sheepish. "Her name is Catherine. She's a teacher in town. We met at the hardware store and—" He trailed off, clearly embarrassed by their obvious delight. "When do we get to meet her?" Isabella asked, feeling genuinely happy for the man who had given her so much. "Actually, I was hoping she could join us for dinner tomorrow night, if that's okay with you both." "Of course it's okay," Isabella said, giving him a hug. "You deserve to be happy, Dad." The words still felt wonderful on her tongue. Daniel had legally adopted Isabella shortly after her emancipation was finalized, and she had chosen to take his surname as a symbol of the family she had chosen over the one she had been born into. Later that evening, as Isabella sat on the front porch swing, watching the stars emerge over the mountain peaks, she thought about the scared 18-year-old who had fled her father's mansion in a stolen car. That girl could never have imagined the life Isabella was living now, filled with purpose, surrounded by love, free to make her own choices and help others do the same. Her phone buzzed with a text from Maria, one of the young women from today's group session. "Thank you for showing us that we can write our own stories. Starting college applications tomorrow. Wish me luck." Isabella smiled as she typed back, "You don't need luck. You have courage, and that's so much more powerful. Can't wait to see what amazing things you accomplish." As she sent the message, Isabella heard the front door open behind her. Riley emerged with 2 cups of hot chocolate, settling beside her. "On the swing. Penny, for your thoughts?" Riley asked. Isabella accepted the mug gratefully, wrapping her hands around its warmth. "I was thinking about how sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing." "You mean the crash?" "I mean all of it. The arranged marriage, the crash, even having to lie about who I was at first. If none of that had happened, I never would have found you and Dad. I never would have discovered what I was capable of. I never would have learned that the most important family is the one you choose." Riley leaned against Isabella's shoulder. "Mom used to say that every ending is really a beginning in disguise. I think she would have loved you. I think I would have loved her too," Isabella replied, and meant it completely. As they swung gently in the mountain air, surrounded by the peace and beauty of their chosen home, Isabella felt a contentment so complete it almost took her breath away. She had everything she had ever really wanted: family who loved her unconditionally, work that gave her life meaning, and the freedom to be exactly who she was meant to be. The scared girl who had crashed. Her car on a dark mountain road was gone, replaced by a woman who knew her own worth and used her experience to light the way for others. Isabella Anderson had not just survived her journey from privilege to purpose. She had thrived, and this was only the beginning. From a terrified heiress trapped in a golden cage to a woman who chose her own family and her own path. This is the incredible true power of courage, love, and second chances. Isabella's story reminds us that sometimes the family we choose loves us better than the family we're born into. That our worth isn't measured by our wealth or status, but by how we treat others and the difference we make in the world. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.